Hey everyone, what's going on? It's David Palmer, Leo King, and welcome to Deep Astrology, your weekly astrology forecast for the week of March 17th through the 23rd of 2020. Brought to you by HighVibe.tv. Now tonight we're doing a special edition where we are doing this live also on YouTube due to the circumstances of the world today. Now, in order to watch this show in its full and exclusive form, please be a member of HighVibe.tv. That's where we can be truly, fully the way that we love to be here at High Vibe. Of course, bringing the high vibes, we're bringing you that ultimate truth. It's very hard today on YT to be able to say all the things I want to say, but I'm going to do the best job that I can, the best codes words that I can, and this is definitely a very intense time where we are there for you with daily video horoscopes that I do, weekly horoscopes for each sun sign, and of course, special shows that Craig and I do, like Full Disclosure and some other fun shows that we have been coming out with and talking about with the members of HighVibe.tv and awesome other amazing people that are on High Vibe bringing content every day, every week to you. Just check it out at HighVibe.tv. Also, tomorrow is my Love Master School Wednesday. Every Wednesday I go live, but it doesn't matter if you want to be part of my Love Masterclass live. You can watch the recordings. We already got 3 classes done. We've actually extended this to a 9-week course, so there's still 5 weeks left if you want to join me live. Or you could just go and purchase the school and start watching the recordings. We had almost, I think, 9 hours of content already just in the first 3 classes. Definitely check it out if you want to know more about your love life, your story, and what's going on in that whole entire dynamic. And it actually teaches you astrology. You don't have to know anything about astrology at all. And I help you understand your own chart, other people's charts. I give you cool little things that I've made that you can use for your own secrets. And I'm about to teach everybody as we get to the latter parts of this program, all my secrets, as well as the traditional aspects in astrology to run relationship stuff with. Now, if you never watched the show before, this is where I channel the horoscope for you, and then I go deep into the charts, which is brought to you by Astro Gold, which you can get on iOS, Android, and of course on any Mac device. If you are on PC, check out Solar Fire. Now, this is one of those weeks of all weeks of all weeks of all weeks. I mean, we don't even really have to say that astrologically, since if you're just going to talk about the reality, it's feeling that way, right? But to me, it's no coincidence that as above, so below, right? I mean, as an astrologer, and many other astrologers out there actually have all been predicting this time, and especially looking at weeks like this as a very potent and extreme week on scales that we've never really been able to define how to experience in our inner soul. And it's been quite a time, right? It's been quite a time with all these planets in Capricorn, with Saturn finally leaving this week and coming into Aquarius. Remember that it was December of 2017 when Saturn entered into Capricorn, its home sign, and met up with the planet Pluto that's been in Capricorn since 2008. And both of those have not been together in the sign of Capricorn since 1518. And they also were in 1517 playing around there. And then, of course, Jupiter added to the mix here, being in Capricorn. And you just gotta like kind of laugh a little bit because we haven't seen those 3 together since 1282 through 84, when really that was another Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn. Now we got Jupiter. And then we have Mars here that's going to hump all over all these energies with the South Node. And we have the Moon to start this week off. So this is major, major, major times where it feels very Saturnian. It reminds me of the energy of Saturn, which is slower. It's restrictive. It's processing. It's growing up. It's stopping to take a look at where things are at and to make sure that you're planning ahead, that you take one step at a time. And I think that, it's a major important time, like Gustav Holst. If you ever listen to Gustav in 1930, his album, The Planets, if you listen to Saturn, you'll start to hear that really slow, melancholy tone. And it's weird going around the world today, I'm sure, when you drive down the street or you watch it on the news and things are shut down, things are quiet. It's forcing us to go really deep in. We are at the end of the sun in Pisces. This is the last year that we can talk about because it is the sun coming into Aries, and it's with this Sun and Aries ingress that we start the new year in Western astrology. And so this is the end of a year. It's the end of some major Capricorn cycles, especially with Mars. Mars is going to be with Jupiter. Mars is also going to be with Pluto this week. And Jupiter and Pluto are coming together as well, which we haven't seen together, not in Capricorn, but just even together since it was November and December of 2007. And that brought on 2008, which I'm sure you all know there's a lot of exact same stimulus packages and so forth going on right now. So, how do we deal with all this? Saturn changing us into another sign is monumental on the astrology. Let's add the sun moving into Aries, which is extremely monumental, is bringing a new year. And let's just add to the fact that we're having a transit we've never seen before in our lives. And unless you were hanging around, around the 1280s, that is all coming so close together that you start to wonder, like, is everything okay? I mean, I know I wonder that outside of the astrology. I had an uncle die a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. I had my best friend die last week, and I almost died tonight. I came here from a car accident that I wrapped myself literally around a tree and was pulled out of a fire, and I'm here. And it makes me think in my life, and it makes me go, wow, okay, what do I need to pay attention to here in my life? What do we all need to pay attention to with everything going on right now? Well, number one is, it's a confusing time with Pisces. Pisces always brings about a lot of uncertainty, especially at these last degrees. It can bring about hopelessness. It can bring about great loss, but it's surrender. And there are things in our life that are meant for our lives and things that are not meant for our lives. And so we can erase this, perspective of the reality for 1 second, and let's go into the collective conscious and into our own conscious space, and let's just realize that the universe is bringing in and bringing out, like the two fish does. This evolutionary element of what is part of our spiritual journey and what is not. At the beginning of this year, I did an event called the Age of Providence and the Era of Providence, and really it was all about this Capricorn Pisces energy, because this is a time of providence, and this is a time where it feels very difficult to understand what is part of our spiritual journey and what is not. And this is very difficult with Chiron, which is an Aries, squaring the nodes, and that's finishing this week. So our egos have gotten the biggest blow, especially identifying this world that we think we understand and know, and we're realizing that we are vulnerable to an identity, that we are not creating the identity of the world that we live in. And I think that's the hardest part, is when you start to realize that, is there a grander orchestra up there that is creating the world that we live in today? And why would that orchestra bring us to events like we see today in the world and so forth? Well, with Mars, that's going to conjunct literally starting here into Thursday, Jupiter, and then Mars with Pluto that follows it. I mean, this is a major time for us to really force ourselves to look at what is important in our lives and take that big quest. It's time for us to listen to things, even though it might come harshly, as, let's be real, this is a harsh energy of Capricorn, and learn that spirit and surrendering to it and listening to what spirit is asking us to look at in our own personal lives first is the most important thing that we need to do before we get lost in the outside world. Remember that we are in Pisces. This is where Mercury is. Mercury is in shadow still. Mercury went retrograde, around 5 weeks ago, where it was this weird Mercury retrograde in Pisces again, like it was in 2019. And this has been a confusing time and trying to figure out weird things, and you don't know who's really saying what, and if they're really saying it, and if it's really making sense, or if anything makes sense anymore. And this week we're going to see Mercury and Uranus make their final sextile that they did in retrograde, and they also did when Mercury was in its first shadow but direct. So we are getting a big comprehensive understanding of things right now when it comes to the things that really are worthy and worthwhile in our life that are going to take us forward. And it might seem weird. Other people might not understand it. Remember, Uranus deals with other people. But it's those values within yourself that we're reevaluating and understanding if it's part of this providence and part of this journey that Spirit is calling us to be on right now. And even though we feel like we're in a lockdown, it's a little bit like the Hangman card in tarot. Maybe it's important for us to stop for just a minute here and just take a look at our own personal lives. We are in a North Node Cancer, don't forget. We are looking at our personal lives, and we're looking at our personal lives to see what is part of the providence in our life. And we're getting major ego blows. There's a lot of things that we would rather be doing right now in life. There's a lot of things that we'd rather be identified with in ourselves, or even things that we identify with, that Chiron is showing us a massive healing in, whether that's traumatic ways or whether that's the sports car that you love so much that literally blows up while you're in it and you get pulled out, like I did tonight. Then maybe I'm not supposed to have that sports car in my life. Maybe that's not part of my providence, you know what I mean? Like, it's these events that, especially with people that come in and out of our lives, for God knows what reason, who knows, right? Like, how do these events happen? They happen because they're supposed to come at moments like this. Because if you think about all these planets in Capricorn and with Mars and Jupiter and Pluto, this is a transformation of the reality and a transformation of the way that we live our lives and how this world does come together. Now, it's not in a very Aquarian kind of energy way. It's in a Capricornian way. Like, does this make sense in the physical realm? Does this make sense to take action towards? Does this make sense that's going to make you reach your goals in your life? And there's a reassessment going on about how we do access our inner authority, how we do access our ability to reach the mission at the end of the day, and what things and what people with Venus in Taurus and Uranus in Taurus are necessary and that are not. And I think that we're going to see the most beautiful element of Neptune and Venus sextile this week that reminds us that there is this higher calling from God. There is a higher calling from the angels that have our back, that we're protected, that we have so much. You know, when people are freaking out about the stores out there and all that stuff, it's weird to see that the news, especially here in the Southern California area, is just showing like, hey, don't trip out. We have to hire more people to bring all the stuff to the stores because we're over full over here, you know? Venus in Taurus has our back. It's at its home sign, but it's a quality checker. And Venus in Taurus doesn't want anything that isn't worthy of its self-worth and value. Relationships that are built upon things of values and true beauty, that true beauty that's divine beauty from the inside, especially with the Neptune sextile. And then, of course, this Sun in Aries, asking for us to start a new year. No, it doesn't have the most amazing aspects this year, I'll be honest with you, but it does have a Mars, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn. It means we all got a lot of work in front of us. It means that we all have the courage to do it. Remember that it's about that inner hero, that inner strength that we must find with the Sun when it comes into Aries. We got a new moon that follows it on Tuesday. And you know, this new moon that's coming in Aries, right? It's going to be with Chiron. It's going to be square the exact position of 4 degrees Capricorn that the solar eclipse was on December 25th and 26th of 2019. And so we are now a quarter of the way through that first eclipse cycle. So there is something to say about a big peak out here over the next week and a half. Not only with Mars crossing over Jupiter and Pluto, and then Mars meeting up with Saturn, Saturn moving into Aquarius on Saturday. Wow. This Capricorn thing's been rough since December of 2017, right? A lot of work, a lot of, you know, kind of feeling like, are you used to the melancholy music in the background? Are you used to moments, even when it feels real high and fun, that it goes straight to burp right after? Maybe a little nirvana does need to come into our life, right? It's guys like Kurt Cobain that did come in during Saturn Aquarius and showed us that maybe it wasn't all about, you know, metal bands. Maybe we could be more artistic-y and different, and people like that more. But when you add to also this whole mix of dark moon and Pisces coming, there's a lot about staying positive through what feels like it's hopeless. And I know that's not simple. And you know, I don't like using personal stories in my life too much. But this last couple weeks for me hit me really hard. I mean, I literally had a couple people die in my world, and then I almost died tonight, literally, for real. Like, the police told people around me, like, I don't know how he survived that one. I don't even know. And I think we're all so caught up in looking around at what could get us, and we've almost forgotten about the things that actually are really happening in our lives too, or forgetting about those things that are important to us, that could leave us, and that are actually sometimes even scarier than that thing that we think we're so afraid of on the outside. That tonight, I'm telling you, it's scary. It's scary to be pulled out of a car with fire, you know? And I think that this is just all of us having to readjust that things come to peaks in life. That's where we're at. We're at the peak of the world in the way that we all thought it should look, and the way that it was set up to look. But for some reason, this Mars, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn is saying that, okay, that's over. It's a new story now. It's a new way for it to look. It's a new structure. Those floorboards aren't that strong, actually. So number one, after just looking at all that, and even just knowing that it doesn't matter what we're going through in the world, or when we're in lockdowns across the world, or wherever that we might be, that these are magical, beautiful moments that we can see right now with Venus and Taurus. What do we appreciate in our lives? What do we truly value? What does the Sun in Aries have to learn with a new moon on Chiron that's coming up next week on Tuesday? And everything around this solar eclipse point from December 25th and 6th of 2019 with Jupiter. It's that our perspective of the world we thought that was the ultimate conquer and quest of achievement really isn't. That with this North Node of Cancer, it's about the personal journey that feels more about the personal way of our own individual lives and what feels good in our personal life. That the conquest of great missions can only come with the backing of a personal life worth doing it for, or lives worth doing it for, or emotions worth doing it for. But if we're just doing it to do it, just because it's told to us to do it or be that way, well, let's be honest. I think it's pretty easy to see how quick and easy that people tend to just, if that's got to be stopped right now, okay, whatever. But then it makes you kind of process and look at it like, is that something that I really need in my life? So this is all about what comes down to the importance and the healing process with Chiron here in Aries and square to the nodes. It's the ultimate of redefining the identification of ourselves and the humility and the vulnerability of the things that we expect things to look like in our life, or even from others, right? That maybe we all don't know that. We don't know what that looks like. And we shouldn't have to be the ones that determine how it should look, right? When a child decides in their life to do something, or chooses art over music, or music over art, or they choose both, or they don't choose to do both and they choose to do sports, or when a kid turns 18 and decides to go to college or does not, isn't this more about being accepting of love and compassion over the people and their values and what they know is their journey? I know in my life, if I would have never followed this journey and done everything that everybody told me not to do, I wouldn't be here right now. I know I'm using a weird example, but I'm trying to show you that this is a point where nobody knows what's best for ourselves, and nobody especially knows what's best for you, and the identification of that or ownership of that. Because that's what Uranus and Taurus is about remembering that the collective is going to have to find a way for all of us to get along with our own self-worth and values that we're not going to want to budge on because we know the value of them. Now, selling, some of that hand, alcohol-based gel, let's just call it, for super high prices is not. You know, that makes sense to be like, hey, you shouldn't do that. That's not cool. But I'm talking about other things. I'm talking about deep interpersonal things that are part of the soul. And I know you guys want to hear a million things about what you think about me in this time in the world events and what I think about this world and this thing. And I can't say that here on YT. Sorry. Y'all know that now. I say that stuff on High Vibe every day in my daily video. So, this is going to stay always on YouTube and without the charts, but today I'm going to give you all the charts because it's an important time. And this Saturn in Aquarius is going to also throw us for a new curveball. Because Aquarius is the ruler of Uranus, and Uranus happens to be in Taurus. So there's so much that's about Uranus and Taurus. Neptune in semi-square, that's a 45-degree angle. Saturn in Aquarius, oh wait, that means Saturn and Uranus are starting to square. Oh my gosh, Saturn's moving into a fixed sign for the first time since an ingress to a fixed sign since October 6th of 2012 when it went in Scorpio. So we're at that 0 point now of then, looking at that square. Where were you in your life in 2012? Where's Venus going? Oh, Venus is going into Gemini, where it's going to retrograde here in May. And that was the retrograde of 2012, in May and June of 2012. So there's a lot about 2012 right now and all the things you got and gathered and understood and changed in values and changed in relationships and changed in all those events that brought you to this year. It was little things like I'll never forget the day before the eclipse. I think it was May 19th, 2012. And I'm not doing this from Wikipedia or anything like this. I'll never forget. I think it was FB that went public on that day. And I remember looking at the chart going, dark moon, solar eclipse happening. And Taurus at the last degrees with the south node. I don't know about that one. How funny. But there's certain things that we start to realize in our lives that sometimes brings us to a place to where maybe it has been this last, time since 2012 in our lives that we really are trying to understand everything's full circle now. And it's all curveball stuff. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I don't want people to worry out there. Remember, Saturn coming into Aquarius is about the people. Remember, Jupiter comes into Aquarius and meets with Saturn here on December 21st of 2012. There is no There is no coincidence about the December 21st, 2012 alignment of the Mayan shift and that Jupiter-Saturn. But right now, before we get to a lot of what the Mayans have already showed us, and I'll be honest with you, there's some jokes between me and a couple spiritual friends and astrologers of like, when we hear people freaking out about the world today, we're laughing like, welcome to what we all went through in 2012 when we woke up so hard to this whole spiritual light worker mission and started, we stopped watching sports full time. We stopped caring about every person in that way. We stopped knowing every show and every person that's on TV. We went totally the other way. So for us, when we see some of this stuff, it's like, okay. It's like I got my astrology still, I got my connection to spirit. But we all, even myself, have things that I'm still connected to, right? So it's like we're all still, nobody's better than anybody here. Nobody's, more woke, right? That's just stupid. But there is a little bit of like, well, everybody, welcome to the party, and it's okay. Like we all were meant for our right times to come into this party, and it looks like that the universe is waking the world up. And it's waking the world up to look at the events and put dominoes together. Because Capricorn is about dominoes, that everything is preset and triggered with a plan. So if you think all this stuff is random acts, no. I'll say that. Every part has been planned 100%. I mean, let's just say when, The Who, not the band, but you know what I mean, came out and announced their biggest announcement that day, chicka chicka pop 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 pop. This person has that person, this is going to go down. All preset. I I was in television my whole life. You know how hard it is as a PR person to get somebody to put something up on a webpage in a minute like that? Weeks, days. Even the big dogs out there that do it, right? Like, stuff's preset. So just remember that this is a time for you to see through. First yourself, and what is not in alignment with your mission of prophecy from God and from where that is. That's why there's a stop in life from God's point of view. To recalibrate yourself here. I want to finish that these nodes go to 3 degrees, and this is where September 1/1 of 01 was. They were at 3 degrees. And remember that Mars humped over that just in the last couple weeks. So was the same time during that time. So there's a lot of correlations to that. And I just want to let you all know that at this moment, yes, it's about your own personal life and finding your own dominoes and why that God has put you in these directions and removing your ego for a second mask and showing the vulnerability and going through events that, you got to be blessed that God is showing you these things. Instead of too hard on yourself or too hard on other people about it, because we are all humble learners and vulnerable humans going through this massive experience right now. And they're more than just the events that are happening in a lockdown. As I realized today in my own life, or my best friend dying last week, like the story of his life, the story of his journey and how he got there makes what we're so afraid about in the world look like nothing, to be very honest. That there are stories out there of other people I know in their lives, that the things that they battle with for decades, for years, they're so hard that we're all freaked out about this, and I understand the freak out. But when you start looking around, you'll start noticing that there's other things in the world that are much greater things to not be freaked out about, but that cause a lot more transformation and change in our lives. This is about us having to be stopped to look at our personal life and then to be able to look out at the world and start to see who is the one playing with all these dominoes here. It's hard to see him. It's impossible almost to see him. But of course, with all this Venus and Uranus and Taurus, a lot has to do with the moolah and who owns Boardwalk and Park Place and Monopoly. Or if you've ever played the game Risk, who has the most countries. Bear with me as I just pulled out. Hello. I put on a good show, right? You wouldn't know. Never appreciated an orange pineapple blast more than this. Well, this is where we go to the charts, and usually I tell all you YT people that I gotta go. It's time for me to just give you the audio, but tonight we're gonna go through the charts with you all because of these times, and all I ask is that you join High Vibe as a member so I can give you the real stuff fully, because I cannot on here. Even if you just read the articles of what happened yesterday with the lockdown in San Francisco and what Google has to do, there is no human to watch these videos anymore. And maybe they'll just keep it that way to see if it violates certain things. So let's take a look at right now. You know, it was interesting when I was doing this chart. I don't know, I was like, whoa, you know, I can't believe today. March 17th of 2020, St. Patrick's Day. I did it late, of course, but I was literally at the time that I was supposed to do this in a major car accident. But as you can see here, as we come into Wednesday morning, early morning, here we are, Saturn at the last degrees of Capricorn. We've got Jupiter here within 2 degrees of Pluto. This is going to be a major conjunction. We've never seen it in Capricorn in our lives together. And then here comes Mars, a malefic, and Saturn, a malefic. They're in the same signs, and they're within, only 8 degrees. And the moon is crossing this. So as you see this moon here, it's going to cross over Mars here tonight, cross over this Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn here on Wednesday. So I'll be honest to you all, Wednesday does look like a pretty harsh day, especially when we start talking about Capricornian things like control, power, not a lot of options, restriction, enforcement, rules, laws. And that's because the south node's here at 4 degrees, which is exactly where the solar eclipse happened. So you can see it right here at this 4. It's like the main spot. This is where the solar eclipse did happen on December 25th and 26th of 19 in December, right? That's with the sun, that was with the moon, and that was with Jupiter here, which, I think it's just very important right now for people. Oh, hold on. It's just very important for people right now to hold on and remember that with the south node, sun, moon, Jupiter, it's a combustion of Jupiter, and it's massive. It just is this feeling of, is this thing ever going to be okay? Well, it's when you make choices in your life that are somewhat difficult, but they are ones where you remember where the long-term plan is, which is a mission for the light, a mission for the higher good in your life. And anything not along on that mission, don't stay there. Don't keep opening that door, close that door. Now, with Chiron, that's been here at 4 degrees, this has been a major transit. I would say that this is actually the one that kicks off everything of why this has been the weirdest time of our lives, because literally this is the node squaring Chiron in Aries. Remember that Chiron in Aries was not found. It was Chiron in Taurus that was found in 1977. So, we're living through, 1969, 1970, these times when we didn't even know Chiron existed. So having Chiron in Aries is something that we've never felt as a species, like actually consciously. We never felt it fully. We didn't, sure, you can look back at the astrology and be like, oh yeah, that was when Chiron was in Aries, and you can start piecing things together. And I always use the analogy of 1970s, early 70s cars. Like, why did the Mustang turn into a boat? You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, what happened? Chiron and Aries, but it was an expression of self that even me as a critique, as we're in Chiron and Aries, like, hey, I don't understand the identity of that thing, and it shouldn't matter. But identifying in your ego the world that you want it to be like right now, that brings you the comfort you want, is not the exact way. It's going to come from a different way, holding space for something different. Like if you're in lockdown and you don't want to be on lockdown, well, guess what? It's like, okay, well, where's going to bring you comfort now that you can re-identify with in a new place? Like maybe it's your living room, and maybe now you start to build a fort with your cats or your dog. And now that's the new space, and maybe it was in that moment you find something so beautiful in your personal life that moves the ladder and changes your life and changes your emotional world so much that you would have never gone there if it wasn't for that lockdown. So Chiron is causing a disruptive force in our egos where it's like, gosh, I don't want to look at it. It shouldn't look like this. But it's like, gosh, there's something major healing in that, because it's going to force us to look somewhere different. So I'm going to show you all here, as we come to Wednesday, and this is a lot, all right? That's why I'm saying, like, be prepared for Wednesday, Pacific, Eastern, American, North America, South America, and late European time. The last time we will feel the moon, the south node, with Saturn in Capricorn. The last time that we will feel the moon with Mars and the south node in Capricorn with Saturn there, and with Pluto there, and with Jupiter there. So there's something to say that there is one of the hardest emotional feelings to deal with and acceptance of that. Because if you see this right here, here's the moon at 28, going to cross over Saturn after being over Pluto and Jupiter and Mars, and with South Node in the same sign. And this is all while the sun is at 28 degrees, going 29 degrees of Pisces, the end of the zodiac, the hardest degrees of the zodiac are the last degrees of Pisces. It's a lot like if you were to like, think if this was your birth chart, okay? Let's say you were Leo rising in 8 degrees here. It would be, 7 and 6 degrees. These are the hardest degrees. These are where a planet is crossing the end of the 12th house, right before it crosses over into the first house. And, okay, we're going in the first. It's a new story. And it's the end here of a story, that end of that 12th house. Remember, this is the 12th house here. It's ruled by Pisces, right? And if we look at the sun right now, this has to deal with the solar part of Pisces. This would actually technically be the 11th. So this is very hard times for the world. And a feeling of hopelessness because we don't understand what it looks like, and we have to surrender with the sun in sextile at 28 to Saturn and to the moon. And we have to accept this, whatever this like kind of rules or difficult aspects it just might feel, or harshness. Mercury, remember, is just at 1 degree, so it's trying to figure things out, but it's at its fall position in Pisces, so it's like, what the hell is going on? I don't know. Is it making any aspects to anything? No. It's just, in a really bad aspect in a Ceci square over to Juno and Libra. So it just almost feels like, I'm using kind of a weird evolutionary way of looking at this astrologically, but our relationship with the world doesn't feel like the world is the wife or the husband that we want and that we understand. Like, I have to take on this world, and I have to marry you? Oh, God, you got to be joking me right now. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of that feeling. It's kind of like an arranged marriage that you do not want to go through with the world. Like, oh, what side of the bed do you sleep on? Oh, you're the one telling me where to sleep all the time and when to sleep and when I can go eat and where I can eat and where I can get all that. Okay. Oh, I get the lockdown room in the bottom of the house. Oh, okay. All right. You get everything else though? Oh, all right. This sounds like a great marriage, right? And I think it's just much more about this end of Pisces, which is total surrender. Like, just accept it because God's doing it for a deeper reason than you even realize. Because Chiron here is still at 4 on this moment. It is squaring the position of the eclipse. It is squaring the node still at 4, right? And remember that when nodes in the nodal axis, the lunar nodes, shift towards the end of a sign, they take longer. Or when they enter into a new sign, they take longer. So when you start to get towards these last, I would say 5 degrees right before May 5th, which is going to be when the North Node is going to move into Gemini, right? It takes a while. We're at March 17th, so a month and a half for it to move 4 degrees. When it's an 18-month cycle, it's like, sometimes it just could feel like eternity when it will sit at a degree for longer than other weeks. Sometimes it'll sit for weeks. Sometimes it'll sit for a couple days, But the nodes, especially they get towards the end, it just kind of feels like, is there ever going to be a moment? Now, this is one of the biggest transits that we will go through in our lives, May 17th and 18th, in the fact of, we will never see this again in our life. We will never see a South Node moon, Saturn in Capricorn with Pluto there in our lives. We will never see again a Saturn, Pluto, South Node moon with Jupiter and with Mars ever again in our lives. We will never see it, especially with Mars and Jupiter conjuncting at 21 and 22 and with Jupiter right next to Pluto about to happen. We're never going to see that again in our lives. We're never going to see it with Saturn also, that the moon has to cross over at the last degree of Capricorn, which is the most intense, harsh degree. And it brings things to a really big edge point. It's edgy right now. The sun is edgy. It's trying to be like, is there hope? I just am looking to get that light, even though it seems so dark. So I'll be honest with you. I don't think that Wednesday is going to be an easy day at all. unless you know how to surrender to it and accept things and listen to what God's trying to tell you. It was not easy for me to surrender to what I went through in a burning car crash today and being pulled out of the fucking car, and that is no joke. And it wasn't the car that I give a fuck about, because I don't. It was just the effect that I had on other people's lives. So here we are on the 19th, and I jumped forward because on the 19th is, believe it or not, in America, and in North America and South America, is when the sun enters Aries. Now, for most of Thursday, okay, the sun will be finishing at this 29th degree, all right? So here's Thursday the 19th. The sun will be here in Ingress into Aries at 8:50 p.m. LA time, 11:50 p.m. New York time. And so this is what we call, the Aries chart. Like, this is the Ingress chart. This is the beginning of a new season. So we are at an equinox. We are shifting into a new season. We are also shifting into a new season about what this new year is going to look like and identify as and understand and look for it. Of course, for the country that you're in, you'd want to use Washington, D.C. if it's America. But what's interesting, if we just take a look at the planetary aspects here, Mars and Jupiter are conjuncting during the sun coming into Aries, which I think is interesting because what's the ruler of Aries is Mars. So Mars is with Jupiter, and it's with it in Capricorn. And so Mars takes the cake. Mars is exalted here. It's very happy, right? Because this is its home, its second home, let's say. Jupiter's at its fall. It's not that happy. It's its worst home. So Mars is trying to push all these big doors to open towards its mission, but Jupiter doesn't have much power here. Jupiter's like, well, I'm trying to give you all the doors open. I got maybe one, I got maybe two, or, and so I think part of this is a big ego blow again, that it doesn't have to be one, because remember that Chiron is sitting with the sun now. And this sun in Aries is reminding us that, yes, it's about action now and new beginnings and the light after the end of the tunnel, but also accepting some things that doesn't look like the way that we want it to look with Chiron there. And on top of that, Mars pushing for a lot of things at the South Node, because it feels like a loser, Mars in the South Node. Like, I need to fight to win because I lost over there, or I lost a bunch of troops, or my what doesn't get hard. I need to get Viagra. Like, do you got some? Open it up for me. It's like, sorry, our supply chain's gone. It's like, oh no, Interesting too, at 22 and 22 degrees, where did Saturn, Pluto, the Sun, and Mercury meet on January 12th? 22 degrees of Capricorn. So Mars and Jupiter are trying to understand and define what has this Saturn-Pluto thing. This is all about defining in the world, or from a place of order, or a place from our higher ups, or the hierarchy system, or whether you want to call that the GOVT. Who's trying to manipulate the world? This is Dr. Evil showing up. And I think it's not who you think, because nobody knows. But there is going to be a lot of things during this period this week about finding the enemy of what's the enemy that we thought the enemy was. No, that's not the enemy. There is an enemy that created the enemy, right? And with Mars and Pluto, or Mars and Pluto, and Mars and Jupiter and Pluto, like, there is something to say about, like, that enemy trying to use the enemy at its strongest, while those that are awake are trying to find and define who the enemy is. Especially with the sun in Aries, with Chiron there, it's going to look weird. It's going to be like, what? And of course, with the state of affairs that we've gone through over the last 4 years, it starts to create this kind of conception that, can we trust anything anymore? I think the weirder it looks, the more truthful it might be. I think the more normal it seems, the more untruthful it is. The other thing as well is the moon in Aquarius during the sun ingress into Aries is not well aspected at all to the sun with a semi-square, 45 degrees. It's not well aspected to Venus either at 15. So the sun and Venus are also in a semi-square, 45 degrees. We also have Neptune and Uranus at a semi-square. Doesn't mean it's the end. It just means that a lot of King Toes is here when it comes to feeling good, wanting to feel good a certain way and have it look a certain way in beauty, but it's hard to define that and show up that way. Neptune as well is also, of course, this distraction element with Uranus to the people, so the people are being cloaked, being toyed with, being, played with. And especially, there's a lot of support for the people, though. Uranus at 4 degrees is in trine to the position where the solar eclipse was, and it is sextiling the nodes and trining the nodes, sorry. So the people are going to pull through on this one. I just think that we all have to really, play the long game. We're in a long game. But there is something about this week about a lot of things starting to be revealed as Mars is forcing that. So let's take a look at after this ingress and what we look to see on Friday. Because on Friday, it's pretty interesting. Now the sun's in Aries, and now the moon's come off that semi-square. And the moon's come off the square to Venus. But here comes Mars past Jupiter now, and now Mars to Pluto. So Mars is going to sit in between Jupiter and Pluto here for a moment and try and understand these big things about the truth and what has been going on behind this curtain of Capricorn, of the powers. If we were to think of this as space, think of this as this big board table here with all these people that have been planning and plotting how the world is going to look. All right? Because the South Nodes has been here with Saturn all through 19. There's events that have been going on since the spring and especially the summer of 2019 that have all been foiled out to come out to be unfoiled now. That's how long things have been taking to reveal here. That's why there's no coincidences with a lot of the connection stuff. We have Mercury that's going to start sextiling over to Uranus to just beg Uranus, even though both planets are in their fall position, to give some sort of hope to the people or some sort of message to understand this craziness. Well, I think that Mars in Capricorn, at least it's exalted. It's here to demand things, and it knows how to push for what it wants. And Mars and Pluto love each other because they are two peas in a pod. They rule Scorpio together. And so there is something to say that Mars can convince Pluto to maybe give up a little bit of info, because what does the warrior got to do? It's got to get intel. Right? Like a warrior can't go out on a mission, or 007 can't do anything without a mission. Sometimes the mission doesn't come till it's like Moneypen says, okay, go here to this city. It's like, you will know when I get in hold of you. It's like, okay. Well, there's something to say about like, hey, I'm here, and I need it now, I've been saying a lot of this feels like Mission Impossible too, like this whole, it's like the last minute and like, oh my gosh, I did it, oh, one, oh, I did it, we're good. Last minute stuff, whoa, and then shoot, there it is. So there's gonna be these moments of, whoa, and you gotta take it in and see it. You gotta see all the dominoes to understand your life. And this is going to happen in your personal life outside of all the stuff I'm talking about right now. But like, there's stuff that has been coming in that has been trying to change your life personally. And this is a moon in Aquarius. It emotionally wants to understand things, especially with all this Aries energy. It's trying to get us all the clues and trying to give us all the pieces to understand where things are going. But not easy. So Friday's going to be one of those days that's about this in-between space of kind of like 007 going, well, where's my orders? Jupiter didn't give me much. There wasn't much that got open there. Moneypen. Here's Saturday, the big day. The 21st of 2020, March. And here's a dark moon. So we get into a dark moon over Mercury. That's kind of hard because I think that we really want to find solutions and answers, but it's going to be very confusing emotionally because of the fact that it's in sextile to Uranus, but it's a dark moon. So we need to be careful of the information that is being brought to us in many ways. And we also in ourselves need to be ready because it is Saturn at its last degree. Saturn comes into Aquarius Saturday night in Pacific. So Saturn does come back into Capricorn later this year, but we are going to see at least come into Aquarius and change the game here and change, some of this weird hardcore restriction stuff that we have seen for a long time. And Mars and Pluto now are, with Jupiter 23, 24, like there's all this energy that is extreme now. This is a major stellium. And it's pushing Saturn out. But it also is pushing a last minute drop of Saturn's big, remember, master plans up here in the universe with the big little, maybe it is a little spaceship, little people looking at it. Venus at 17, getting ready for the sextile to Neptune, so we want to feel good. I mean, we want to try and understand all this world, but there's a lot that's hard to understand. You have to be really aware that we have to try and surrender to a lot of this with the dark moon in Pisces. I mean, it's a total surrender that the information is weird and different. But it's interesting to see the Saturday night. I put it on another chart because this is the ingress of Saturn in Aries. So we're going to see Saturn in Aries, Aquarius. All this new energy coming at the same time. It's going to happen at 8:59 p.m. I think it's so ironic that literally 1 minute before midnight on the East Coast, 1 minute before 9 p.m. in LA, and here's Saturn in Aquarius. Holy moly. And Saturn is, remember, ruled by Aquarius as well. It's a dual rulership, and they're right next to each other. But this is an air sign. This is not Earth. This moves us into air, into understanding, and it's while we're going to see Mercury and Uranus exactly sextile. The dark moon is going to be in a place where it is trying the North Node. It is trying to connect with things, but, it's very confusing with Neptune here, and especially a dark phase. We've got to come into some really ultimate surrender and start to just see, yes, maybe liberty, yes, maybe freedom, yes, maybe these things are desperately the big challenges in our life that Saturn now is going to bring up. But it doesn't mean that they can't happen, and it means that we need to be ready for the new moon in Aries in the following week for this stuff to be understood. Mars has not conjuncted Pluto yet. MoneyPen has not given us the orders yet or the intel. So right when you think that you want the intel, it's like, is she ever going to come through with that stuff? Like, gee, Merry Christmas. Like, you sent me all the way out here in this old BMW. Like, wow, my gosh. Like, gee, man, come on. Saturn in Aquarius is a whole nother story. I could talk hours on that, which I do on High Vibe, by the way. But it is the breaking through of many cycles of restriction, but it is a global energy. It is a collective energy. It is lots of pieces that we're trying to put together and puzzles that are very difficult. It's a challenge. It's like the hardest puzzle of our lives that we're stepping into to understand. And as we finish and we come into Sunday, here's the moon with Neptune. Here's Mercury with Uranus. So we're getting info, and here's Venus with Neptune. So I think that there's some positives here, and I think that we're going to feel Saturn in Aquarius. It's definitely going to feel different. Might feel weird. Might feel like you want more freedom. Might feel like you want more understanding of all the puzzle, but it's not going to be there. We also have Lilith in the sun. I mean, come on. It's like we really want to have life the way we want it to look, but these nodes are at 404, and they're moving to the 3-degree spot of that 911, 01 placement. So there's a lot of weird stuff. There's also Neptune at 1855. And I want to say that Neptune, when it comes to 19 degrees of Pisces, will be the first time in our life that we are going to feel since the 1850s and also since 1692 when there was the witch trials. So maybe there's a witch out there that created in her brew or their brew from the bat stew. You know what I mean? Code. Think about that one. Monday, weird week to step into. Chiron leaves 4, of course, and it's with Lilith, and Lilith is sitting with the sun in Chiron, but it's this Mars and Pluto that have money pen on Sunday has come and given us this stuff, and it's like, what? And Saturn is trying to figure out this whole thing, and it's still a dark moon in Pisces. It's like, I can't do anything about it right now. And there's a lot of real true tests of surrender, especially Chiron now back at 5. This is the actual shadow position of where Chiron went retrograde last year. We also are going to see the Sun and Lilith with Chiron, so it feels like we almost are like, is there any way? Again, these are going to be major tests about the identification of life, and it might not look the way that you want it to look, and you're going to have to find a way to start to realize that it is a look for some reason that is bringing you strength to accept it and see something different within it instead of this, this isn't the way I want it to look. Nobody wants it to look this way, but for some reason, there's something going on behind the curtain, especially with Saturn that's been in sextile to the Sun, especially from Capricorn to Aquarius. It is transferring the power from this kind of more power position to the people, but we're not there to see it yet with the dark moon, and we got to wait for this new moon that will be on Chiron, which will again be another month about seeing things that maybe we didn't want to see or the way that we don't want to see it in our lives and identify with it, but it is a healing process in many ways. So there's some major healing coming here. On Tuesday, on the 24th, we have Mars that will have been with Jupiter, Pluto, but we got to deal with, coming up here, a Jupiter and Pluto conjunction starting next week. And we got to deal with the nodes at the 911 of 01 at the same time. So we are dealing with something that is much more grander than what we see now in the world. We are seeing something that is a whole other story that is about to be dropped on you. That's what this is about, and being prepared that it might not look the way you want to. You need to try and understand it. And it's going to be a hard puzzle piece. It's not even I can't define it for you in any way. Not anybody truly can. And I think that, it might be something that, you can use any other people's ideas or sites, and they think that they've got the ideas, and everybody that does, I think, have pieces of it all. But I think we got to find a way to piece this whole thing together. That's part of being part of the collective. And I think it's part of God's plan, too, to make sure that we have figured out our personal lives, that we have seen the things that are important to us, that we have seen the things that really matter to us, that we have seen through a time in our lives where we are restricted from the most things we want, especially when you see that alignment on Wednesday, the day after on the 18th, March 18th, you realize that that will be the most intense restriction energy ever, but that it kind of will frolly out for a while, right? Because that's the peak of the cycle, meaning that it's the peak of the feeling and it echoes for a while, right? If I'm going to make it'll echo for a minute. But imagine when it's that big, it's going to echo for a while. Boom, 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 boom. So you got to remember that everything from this point on is more of the echo of what has been dropped. Especially the biggest one was Jupiter, Pluto, the Sun, Pluto, Saturn, and the Sun and Mercury on January 12th. We've been seeing the echoes of that. Now there's this big echo, and so it feels like there's echoes meeting echoes in a racquetball court, which is illegal to do right now, but you know what I mean? Like, bam, 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 whoa, 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 whoa. Echoes. So be strong, be diligent, and if it looks weird, makes more sense to me. If people try to normalize it in a way that makes it feel like it's, that there's not something uniquely different about this and something that doesn't make sense, I would definitely question that. And this is the new year in astrology. So remember that this new year is going to be about a very weird time about dealing with the echoes that we have gone through in 2020 into 2021 about control and things that have taken us from the world the way we want to see it, and a lot of puzzle pieces to put together, and a lot of the collective that has to find a way to come together in a way when it's harder than ever. Or is it? Hi, we're on highvibe.tv. So I wish you all the best through this time. Remember the quality of beautiful things in your life. I learned so many things this last 2 weeks. And you know what? To most people, it would be the most rough go ever. And even to me, I thought this would be the most rough go ever. But it's been the most beautiful. And I've learned more in myself than I ever have in my life, ever. And I'm still processing tonight, but I have the time to process that. We all have the time to process these personal, emotional things in our life so we can do this great mission better and figure out this crazy puzzle. And I think that there's people that we need to start trusting are out there in the world that are piecing it together in a beautiful way that's beyond what we're being told and how they're piecing it together. And then there are those that are saying they're piecing it together that I don't know if I would trust that stuff. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the astrology's wrong, but for God's sake, for some reason, it's always been right for thousands of years. I love you all very much. Make sure you check out highvibe.tv. Make sure you check out that Love Masterclass. I'll be doing that tomorrow night. 4 p.m. Pacific is when we do it, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you have the time, if you want to join it, be part of this Love Masterclass. I'm going to teach you all about love and how to manifest your own love story better and understand your love story and look at the love story of other people. And then, of course, all my secrets and also the traditional aspects of astrology in itself for relationships. Thank you so much. Please be a member of highvibe.tv today. We'd love to see you on there and get all the daily videos that I do, all the weekly horoscopes, and where I can be out of code and just drop down the TRUTH. Thank you so much for all your support, and we'll see you on the next Deep Astrology. Please share it out to people. We love it when you share it. We'll see you on the next one.